Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm going to wait a couple of seconds for people to join before I get started. So just bear with me. So I'm just waiting for a couple of people to join before I go ahead and get started. Just bear with me a second. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully, people will join a little bit later. But I know that most of you by now have heard about the Rayshard Brooks case, and I haven't provided my commentary on this case yet, and I've decided to do so now. Um, so I'm going to talk about that case. Then I'm going to talk about some statements that Candace Owens made about the case. And then I'm going to go into some developments that have happened recently in this case. So many people are familiar with this situation. You had a brother, Rayshard Brooks, who drove to this Wendy's and he was in the line for drive-through service. And apparently he fell asleep in the line and was asleep for an extended period of time. And you had people driving their cars around his car in order to get service. And someone in this particular Wendy's restaurant called the police to report the incident. The police arrived on the scene and they knocked at his door. They opened his door or whatever, and he was still asleep. They had to shake him. And eventually he woke up and he moved his car out of the way and he talked to the police. The police asked him if he had anything to drink. And for a while, he was very polite to the people. He answered their questions. He was not combative at all, not confrontational. He was acting in a regular type of way. He was engaging with these officers, providing the answers to the questions that they asked him. But he appeared to be somewhat intoxicated because they asked him about where he was going, where is he, and all that kind of stuff. And he really didn't have a clue where he was. He thought he was somewhere else. He mentioned some bridge, being near a bridge, and some other things. And apparently he thought he was somewhere where he wasn't. And he was, in fact, in Atlanta. So they're asking him all these questions. And then another police officer arrives on the scene. This officer asks him some more questions. And then at some point, the officer decides to arrest him. And before the officer arrests him, before he starts to put the handcuffs on him, he doesn't say that he's under arrest. He simply starts to cuff him. He tells him to put his hands behind his back and he starts to cuff him. And then it's at that point that Rayshard Brooks becomes confrontational. He struggles with the officers. He punches both of the officers. He struggles with the officers. He proceeds to take a taser from one of the officers. He runs away from the officers after punching them. And then as he's running away, they try to tase him and, they can't tase him or whatever. They're not able to tase him. And then he actually turns around and it looks like he fires the taser at one of the cops. Just as he's turning around and pointing the taser and it looks like he's firing it at the cop proceeds to shoot him in the back. And I think he shot him like 3 times in the back, killing his brother. So this brother is dead. And this follows several other incidents of police brutality that have been high profile in the past couple of days. You had the George Floyd situation where the police in Minneapolis killed that brother. You had a police officer put his knee in that brother George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes as the brother had his hands cuffed behind his back. The brother could not breathe. And he told the officers repeatedly that he could not breathe. And that police officer, that damn pig, kept his knee in that brother's neck to the point that that brother passed out. And when the police got there, not the police, but when the EMS people got there, he was non-responsive. He did not have a pulse, and he was probably dead on arrival. When they arrived there, the brother was probably already dead. So you had that situation. And then before that, you had the Ahmaud Arbery situation where the brother is out jogging, minding his own business, and you had these two white people assume that this brother is some burglar, and they decide to arrest him. You know, they tried to use a citizen's arrest. There's a confrontation, and then one of these people ends up shooting his brother with a shotgun, killing him live on camera. So you had those two incidents, the Ahmaud Arbery, and then you had the George Floyd, and around the same time you had the situation, or it's been talked about around the same time, the situation involving Breonna Taylor. So you have all this anger that's out here, all this frustration, and then you have another young black man killed by these police. So the people are outraged, they're demanding action, they're protesting in Atlanta. And before this brother was killed in Atlanta, you had a situation where two college kids were tased by police, abused by police in Atlanta. So you have an environment that's ripe for outrage. And that's what you had here. So people were outraged to see this brother killed. And, I just want to share some of my thoughts about this. Was it wise to fight the police? No. Was it wise to punch the police? No. Was it wise to take a taser from the police? Was it wise to shoot at the police with a taser? Of course not. It wasn't wise to do that. But even under those circumstances, that brother did not have to die. That brother lost his life unnecessarily. And it's just outrageous that this would happen. The police could have done something to arrest this brother without killing him. I've seen video footage of white people wilding out with the police, punching the police, chasing the police. And at the end of the day, those white people end up just fine. At the end of the day, those white people don't get arrested. I mean, they get arrested, but they don't end up dead. They don't end up brutalized. But when it comes to black people, they don't show any mercy. Their first instinct is to shoot and kill. And, according to the footage and according to the prosecutor, why this brother was dying, why this brother Rayshard Brooks was dying on the ground, one of those cops proceeded to kick this brother while he was literally down. And, as the prosecutor said, that says something about their intentions. That speaks to the kind of hatred that they had. And one of them shouted, "I got him," after they shot and killed this brother. So there's something there. Like, do I think that this is going to be an easy case to prosecute? Absolutely not. Do I think that it's going to be an easy case for the civil attorneys to recover damages? No, I don't think it's going to be an easy case. It's going to be challenging. But still, in this situation, I'm going to advocate for the brother and his family. That brother didn't deserve to die. They could have arrested that brother without him being killed. And it's just a shame that you have people that go all out of their way to defend the same cops that brutalize black people, to defend the same cops that harass black people, that hunt black people, that come up with all kinds of excuses to kill black people. And, I find that to be repulsive. And I'll get to your comments in a second. I find it to be absolutely sickening that you have somebody like a Candace Owens actually defending the cop that killed this brother. The cop that killed this brother shot this brother down in the street. You know, it's just a shame that you have Negroes like this. Even if you felt like the police were justified, even if you felt that that brother shouldn't have been doing X, Y, and Z, it still doesn't make sense for any Black person to be raising money for the cop that killed one of their own people. So I'm going to share this story I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see it. Peace and blessings to everyone in the chat. It's just crazy that this happened, man. It's just crazy. And what's even more crazy that you have Black people that are happily defending these damn pigs, man. These pigs that kill Black people. They're defending them. They're raising funds for these people. And it just shows you how lost some of our people are. It shows you how deep they are in the sunken place. It shows you how blind, deaf, and dumb a lot of these people are. So I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see this article that I'm going to reference about Candace Owens. So I saw this article on EuroWeb, and I know this is a few days old, but I had to talk about this. I've been busy lately, but I said I have to talk about this because people like this need to be ostracized. People like this need to be condemned. People like this should be a pariah in the Black community. We should not be inviting these types of parasites to Black platforms like Revolt TV. Why are you giving this woman a platform? So this article, and it's from EuroWeb, is posted in the description box to this video. It says Candace Owens is showing her true colors again in her ongoing efforts to further piss off the Black community. She defended an Atlanta police officer who shot a Black man, Rayshard Brooks, in his back, killing him. Brooks, 27, died from 3 gunshot wounds to the back, according to the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office. And his death was ruled a homicide. And this article says that Owens, the conservative activist, posted on her Twitter account that she is raising funds to support the white officer who gunned down Brooks in a Wendy's parking lot in Atlanta on Friday night. She is actually raising money for somebody that killed a Black man. And she has the nerve to talk about people defending criminals, celebrating criminals. That was one of the points that she raised in her video about George Floyd, talking about how people make martyrs out of criminals, when here she is literally defending a criminal cop, someone who has been charged with felony murder and like 11 other charges. She's literally defending a criminal. I guess when she talks about people defending criminals, she has no problem with people defending white criminals, obviously. So this also talks about a post that she made where she says Black Lives Matter supports criminals, Blexit supports police officers. We're working on building a fund that will go live tomorrow for officers that are unjustly terminated. And we know in this situation, this officer was fired. The police chief resigned in light of what's been going on. So she's standing with the police, the same police that brutalized Black people, the same police that harassed Black people and killed Black people. This is who she's backing. You know, an institution that disproportionately targets Black men, You know, as I've said over and over again, in 2015, there was a study done by the Washington Post where they talked about how black men make up like 6% of the population. But at that time, they accounted for 40% of the unarmed people killed by the police, shot and killed by the police. But this is the institution that she's celebrating. These are the people that she's taking pictures with, smiling and happy. And these are the people that she's raising funds for. Criminals, I mean, some of these cops are criminals hiding behind a badge. Some of these cops are committing crimes against black people under the color of law. And you have this step it, fetch it, Aunt Jemima out here defending these cops that kill our people. It's like you don't even need the white conservative anymore. You don't even need the Ku Klux Klan anymore when you have mammies like this, when you have puppets like this, when you have mouthpieces like this, people that serve the interests of white supremacy like this. You had these cops killing his brother, man. And again, you know, I emphasize again that the brother could have made different choices and perhaps there may have been a different outcome, but that brother did not deserve to die. That brother did not have to die. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit silently by as some mammy raises funds for somebody that killed one of our brothers. So she went on to post something else. She said, any person demanding justice for Rayshard Brooks is a representative of the absolute vermin of American society. There should be protests demanding that the police chief be reinstated and that Mayor Keisha Bottoms resign for placating criminals. I've had enough. This is what she says. And then she has hashtag black blue. I mean, back the blue. That's what she says on here. And I just think that this is outrageous, man. And, you know, that's one of the things, you know, that's why elections matter, you know, because if you didn't have a strong black mayor like Keisha Bottoms, there wouldn't be any resignations or firings. If you didn't have a strong prosecutor like the prosecutor there, you wouldn't have charges against these officers. Instead, you would have excuses for these officers, like we saw in the situation involving Ahmaud Arbery, where you had a prosecutor make all kinds of cockamamie, half-baked excuses for two white vigilantes that killed that brother, Ahmaud Arbery. So yeah, I just had to get on here and share my thoughts about this situation. Let me see what you all are saying before I close. You know, I appreciate everyone that's tuned in. Yeah, and that's what Sunday Ocean pointed out, that Brooks was on probation. And that's a point that I heard Van Jones make on CNN. He was talking about how when people are under such strict probationary rules and stuff like that, they do everything that they can to avoid probation. They will do what they can, because that means that if they violate their parole, they can go back to jail, back to a cell, and be deprived of their freedom. And there's a interesting interview that this brother Brooks does where he's talking about his experiences, talking about his struggles as a ex-offender and all that kind of stuff. And I encourage you to check it out. If I'm able to, you know, I'll find the link and post it in the description box to this video. But yeah, that's why he was fighting like that, you know, from what I understand. Fighting for his freedom, man. I mean, he was fighting so he wouldn't end up being locked up for an extended period of time. Oh yeah, and there's one other thing that I want to touch on before we close out in this video. You know, I almost forgot, and that's the situation involving his white girlfriend being charged with arson. So I'm going to get into that in a second, but I want to go through your comments. Shout out to Bonafide 1970. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to Fredro Miller. Thanks for tuning in. Fredro said they kicked him like a dog. And that's the thing, like you look at these things and it's those fine details. Like we didn't even realize this thing about him being kicked until the prosecution laid out their case or their arguments for, charging these police officers. We didn't know about that. And we didn't know in the Ahmaud Arbery situation about one of the killers calling his brother Ahmaud Arbery a fucking nigger as he was laying on the ground dying. We didn't know about that. Yeah, it's just a shame that you had something like that happen. Yeah, and Sunday Ocean pointed out, you're right. He didn't have to die. It seems like things changed so quickly. I was not expecting him to fight back or the cop to shoot him. It's a sad situation. Yeah, exactly. Like when I saw that, I wasn't expecting that to happen. It seemed like they were, it was something that could have been handled. They were engaging him and then everything went left. And it's just a horrible tragedy. Yeah, so Bonafide 1970 said they didn't even have to chase him. They had his information from his plate and his license plate. The pig who shot and kicked him while he was dying simply wanted to murder him in cold blood. And Bonafide also said this, if I was Candace Owens, I would quite honestly be afraid to talk the way she does. And he went on to say, she might not understand it, but she's putting herself in extreme jeopardy. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's true. I mean, because you have some people that are not going to tolerate this kind of stuff, man. You have some people that are extreme and they may take matters into their own hands. They may not be satisfied simply debating somebody or simply doing a YouTube video like I am doing. But it's like that woman is a parasite. That woman is a professional troll. It's like she's getting paid to troll the Black community. She's getting paid to be the voice of the white supremacists. It's like the white supremacists can remain incognito or in the cut while he has her out front using all his talking points. And it's just a shame that you had this. And Shorty Womp Womp mentioned that there should be a law against shooting somebody running away. And there are laws against that. There's a couple of cases, a couple of the cases were cited by the prosecution in this case. They cited like 2 different cases that talk about how an officer cannot shoot somebody in the back that's fleeing, cannot shoot somebody unless they have a reasonable fear that their life is in danger or something like that. They can't just shoot somebody in the back because they're running. We saw this in a situation with Walter Scott when the brother was just shot in his back, not posing any kind of threat at all. And you had a situation where this brother, Rayshard, was running from the police and he turned around and he had a taser. And it looks like he shoots the taser at the cop. But even that, like as the attorneys had pointed out, a taser is not a lethal weapon. It's considered a non-lethal weapon. So that wouldn't justify shooting and killing his brother. They did not have to kill his brother. They could have arrested him without killing him. And it's just a shame that we have another brother dead at the hands of these police. And Fredro mentioned that the officers were mad because they got beat up. And I can understand somebody being mad. Like if somebody punched me in the face or whatever a couple of times and fought with me and humiliated me, I guess I would be mad too. But if you're a police officer, you're supposed to be trained to deal with matters in a professional kind of way. And that's not what these officers did. So I want to share this other story with you all that's related to this Rayshard Brooks matter as well. So just bear with me one second. I'm going to share my screen again. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Okay, so I saw this article from I think this is the New York Post. Yeah, New York Post. And as you all know, like after this incident happened, the Wendy's restaurant where this whole thing took place was burned to the ground. The restaurant is unrecognizable. And I saw some articles where they were talking about like how a white woman actually burned down that restaurant. And they showed these little pictures of this white woman setting a fire. And people were like, oh, a white woman is burning down this building. It's not black people doing this. And that made me think about the whole thing where you have these agent provocateurs and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that that was the situation. But it turns out that this white woman that burned down this restaurant was actually Rayshard Brooks' girlfriend. It says the woman arrested for burning down an Atlanta Wendy's as retribution for the police killing of Rayshard Brooks was his girlfriend, her lawyer confirmed Tuesday. And her name is Natalie White. And as they point out in this article, when the police stopped Rayshard Brooks, they asked him, several questions, and he mentioned this woman's name several times. And this situation is kind of complicated because Brooks was actually married to a black woman at the time of his death. It said the White turned herself in Tuesday after a warrant was issued for her arrest. And, they talk about how he was married and everything. And here's a picture of his white girlfriend. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And I wonder how this affects people's view on this particular case. Because I know that, for instance, with the George Floyd situation, some of these salty, bitter, women, hate-filled women were basically saying, well, black people, black women in particular, shouldn't be supporting George Floyd because he had a white girlfriend and his white girlfriend was speaking out against hate and saying that, people shouldn't be hateful and all this and that. So people were saying, well, because of that, black women should fall back. And then also some other stuff, about black women being warriors and pushed to the front lines and being disrespected by black men and blah, blah, blah. But I'm wondering if these same women they're probably doing videos about this guy now too, because he had this white, if these allegations are true, a white side chick while he was married to this black woman. And again, they're probably going to say that that's disrespect to the black woman and stuff. And to a degree, I get that and I understand that. But again, I think that that's a personal issue that has nothing to do with this question of police brutality. It has nothing to do with whether or not the police acted appropriately. But I wanted to bring that situation to your attention because it's very interesting that you would have something like that happen, like where this white woman literally burned down this restaurant because of what happened. So before I go, I'm just going to look through your comments real quick. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share with you on that. And I'm probably going to do one more video before I go to sleep tonight. So I hope that y'all can hang in there with me. I'll be back on here in a few minutes with a real quick story about developments in the Ahmaud Arbery case. Peace and blessings, everyone. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a good night.